think of it like there's a timeline of a schedule, and there's like this episode takes this amount of time, starting from this date, ending at that date, and then that's one part of the process. And here's the next episode. You know what I'm saying? So this is this week. Next week, this episode starts. Maybe there's a gap, and this week, so forth. And different parts of the team, like here's a board team, and they work on this episode, and they're done. This is their section of that timeline, and they go into this board and so forth. And the layout team goes on to this piece, you know what I mean, and so on. And the design is working through all these things. So what I'm saying is each team doesn't work on this entire strip of weeks. Different parts of the department work on one episode for say 3 or 4 weeks, and they jump on to the next episode, right? And that way we get the whole season done of 22 episodes. Although I would say a season is about probably about 18 months if you take in everything into account. But to start off, we have the writers. The writers have a retreat meeting where they pitch out ideas, and then the hope is, and they do this twice a year. The hope is to get like a dozen ideas for, okay, we're going to make these ideas into shows. And that comes out of those meetings. And people could have like just a small pitch, like a kernel of an idea. Some people come in with like the whole 3-act structure, and it doesn't follow that the person who pitches it writes it. That can change. Al Jean is the one he's a showrunner now, and he's been the showrunner for a number of years now. And he will assign which writer will do, which show. And sometimes the writer really wants to do the show they pitched, and sometimes they go, that sort of all depends. And that's how it starts. The writer will spend, I don't know, a month to write a script or something like that. Maybe it's shorter or longer. I'm not really sure, but the script is then a round table, like gone through, line by line by line, and they look for funnier things. Is this clear? Is this not clear? And then there'll be a rewrite after it. The writer will go back and rewrite it. And then is a table read. And then after the table read, there is a rewrite, because the idea of the table read is we get an audience. We get friends of friends to come in and laugh or not laugh at the table read. And that's the thing that what happens is that people are making notes. And they're like, well, that didn't get a laugh. That got a laugh. Oh, that's really funny. Maybe we can expand that, so forth. The story idea, and that's where Jim and Matt start weighing in heavily. They'll have a meeting afterwards with the writer and the showrunner, and I sit in that too. And this needs to be stronger. Jim's very much focused on what's the emotion of the script, what's the storytelling. He'll say, this is funny, but man, the story, man, we got to work on the story. This is not, this has to be clearer, or we need more attention to this, and so forth. And he's really dogmatic about that, which is great, because it keeps us honest to telling stories and making sure the characters are relating and so forth. And then we start boarding it, and then we'll have a meeting. Basically, we'll sit down with usually Mike Anderson is a supervising director now. We'll sit down with the directors, and sometimes I go to those meetings and we'll talk about with the directors what we think is important and so forth. And the board artists will rough out their boards, and they'll present it to us now as an animatic. They said we don't go through we have the boards, but they'll rough out the boards in Storyboard Pro, Toon Boom program, and we'll watch it. And then we'll react to it afterwards. So we'll say, well, this could be more cinematic and so forth. And we work on the staging and so forth. And then we have another meeting about the board, and then we present the boards in animatic form to Al Jean and the writer, and Bill Odenkirk, who has a lot of notes about design and so forth. And they'll make notes, and Al will then say, there has to be another almost small rewrite, as he said, well, this joke clearly doesn't work, or this could be funny, or we can just cut that's not needed, and so forth. And then we do a more elaborate sort of layout, not really a layout pass, where we add all these things together. We've actually shortened that process a little bit. And then we present that animatic to all the writers, and then there's a larger rewrite after that. And then we start doing the beginnings of the animation, And we animate it. We do all the key posing. Sometimes we animate full scenes, but mostly it's key posing. And then we time it and we send that to our studios in Korea for the in-between work, cleanup, and painting. Also, I'm not mentioning it, but while we're boarding it, or even sometimes before it, there's design work going on. New props, new characters, new backgrounds, and so forth. Whatever the scripts are calling for. And then at the end of the process too, once we ship it, color department is now doing their magic, and they do a lot of magic. They do a lot of beautiful stuff. We also have a lot of people who help us in terms of doing elaborate camera moves and After Effects and so forth. And then we get it back in color, and there's another rewrite after that. So these are the things that keep it fresh, because if people keep, we always are like trying to improve and trying to see what we can do better. And then sound effects. Alf Clausen adds music. And there you go. So each episode, there's a lot of attention put into each episode. I can sort of express it this way, is that there's sometimes like in a table read, and by the way, Al Jean's very smart about it, and so is Matt, is that they realize there's certain elements that didn't get a big laugh because they're very visual. And I'll even, it's not always necessary for me to stick up for that, but I'll say, we really should try this, even though it didn't get a big laugh at the table read. It's a big visual thing. And they always are already, absolutely, so there's that element of it. And and there's other things that I'll talk to the directors and I'll say, this really demands a fun acting moment. This would really be elevated depending on how you do the performance, just doing a funny performance will just elevate this writing, and try to encourage them to make that approach, But yeah, the other thing it's interesting is that, and David Merkin talked about this because when he took over as showrunner, he really started doing more. Homer really got even stupider, to a really interesting extent, and really very kind of eccentric shows at the time. And now they're kind of like, very normal. But at the time, it was like, people were like, really? Should we do this? I mean, Homer seems crazy at the college. He almost seems psychotic. But David Merkin was of sort of the opinion, it's like you don't know which kind of show you're going to get. Sometimes the shows have a kind of more grounding in reality, and sometimes they're completely bananas. And he liked that because he said you couldn't really second guess what the show is going to be about and what style of humor almost when he was running it. And what that allowed us was that, okay, we have a variety of the shows we can do. And some, are crazier, and some are more emotionally based, and have more reality into them. And so almost like, within the context of the show, one episode, we're happy to have a reality like that, of that, and other shows we can break that reality. Whether the type of story we're telling is slapstick and crazy, like going back to an earlier show when it was this cat burglar and Homer it was called Homer the Vigilante, and it ended up being a parody of It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, so it was totally off the rails. I mean, it's a completely different episode from another one during David Merkin's career when Lisa becomes a vegetarian, which has had a lot of sort of emotional reality to it. And then later, along with the Halloween shows, we'll call the non-canon shows, because we sort of are taking our characters and doing whatever we want to with them. There became these sort of tall tale shows, and then like where people are telling stories, and so we have another license to put the characters in different sort of costumes and different periods of time and so forth, and parody different things. I like them all. I mean, some people say, I don't like those shows as much. It's like, well, then don't watch them. Watch the ones you like. I always look back at the Land of Chocolate sequence because I remember reading the script and coming to that point in it. I was supervising director at this point, so I was directing less frequently, and I was more sort of like adding my suggestions and any participation to an episode. I remember reading that, and I read that it was just a paragraph about the Land of Chocolate. I fell out of my chair. I was laughing so hard, and part of it was what was written, and part of it just what I saw in my mind. And when it came time to board it, I was talking to the board artist, and I was saying, and he was doing like a parody of something, and I said, well, rather than do a parody of something, let's do something that's unique. We don't need to parody anything. This is Homer in the Land of Chocolate. Let's just have Homer in the Land. And I sort of boarded the first part of that, where you start on the sign, you pan down to Homer, skipping after the chocolate bunnies. And then I ended up animating that skip and so forth, because it had to be a specific level of Homer's, absolute gleeful delight. So that was sort of one. I think that was a contribution that I'm very proud of. I really am glad to get to FMX. I've been a fan of special effects ever since when I discovered Ray Harryhausen. So coming to see the presentations about techniques and what has gone into some recent films and techniques in special effects, and participating on these panels and meeting a lot of effects artists who I've never had a chance to meet has been a terrific experience.